Hi guys, I hope you're good since last video. We have seen in previous video limit range and resource quota when you administrate a Kubernetes cluster and want to have control over what is deployed by users from different development squads in a safe, agile organization. You want to give some space where developers have some freedom to test their features, but at the same time, you want to have full control in a fine-grained manner. In this video, we are going to see what validation you can put in place at admission as policies. You plan, you deploy your policy, and everything is going to be automated. I will also go as far as showing you how to set up your own custom Kubernetes resources to enforce that. We will use some very abstracted examples, as always, so that you know how far you can go. We get back to the amazing manga kisa to illustrate our examples. You will need a terminal, a cluster, and the Kubernetes documentation on the side, as always, or just watch to the end once and then do your own hands-on, pausing the video here and there. I've left a link in the bio for students who want to learn AI by doing, beginner devs who want to think at a service they could offer, or business owners who want to use AI for themselves. It is free. There is a guide PDF to download and the video. Link is in the pinned comment and video description. Get it now from our hub, check our houses. Also, please like and subscribe. Thank you for your support. Open your terminal. Let's get started. Validating admission policy, feature gates, activation. So I have upgraded my cluster 128.15. I have passed it to the 1.2915 version. Why did I do that? Because I couldn't activate the feature gate for the admission policy. So I had to upgrade because it's already by default present, but we need to activate it in the version 1.29. So you can see here it's present when we grab the API resources. So this means that we will be able to use it. It's in a beta version, so still in beta, not stable yet in the 1.29 version of Kubernetes. And I'm going to show you how to activate it. So there is two different places to go: API server, so etc Kubernetes manifest kube API server, and the other one will be kubelet config file. So here, let's go here. We had already activated the sidecar containers in previous videos. So here we're gonna just add here validating admission policy equal to true. So we used another way when we activated the sidecar containers, and here I'm showing you the manual way to do it, which is more straightforward. While the other way we had used the API by patching the API server and applying this config file to the cluster. So varlib kubelet config.yaml, we go in this path that you can see on the top in the middle. We go at the bottom of the page, and we're just going to add the feature gate. So here you can add both feature gates because we have sidecar container. We had activated sidecar container before using a kind of environment variable that kubelet always have access to. But here you can also come and write it here directly. So feature gates, it's a camel case, sidecar container true, and now we activate the other one that we want to use today, which is the validating admission policy, and we set it to true. Now those components to be active, we need to restart kubelet so that kubelet can pick up on those. The API server has already restarted because we have modified the YAML file in the manifest. So now let's just sudo systemctl restart kubelet. Before that, let me just do a daemon reload. And let's restart kubelet. We want it to work straight away. I don't want to go around with this. If we get any issues in the future, we'll try to fix it. But for this part, we're just going to go straight away in what you should do, because this is the mandatory stuff to activate. Otherwise, you won't be able to follow along and use those admission policies. We're going to describe now the pod, the kube system, the kube API server. It's in the namespace kube system. We got it here, auto completion. And we're going to see that it's activated here. So it has been added to the feature gates. Validating admission policy, true. The cluster is working, so we didn't break anything. We can get all the pods. You can see all the pods are present. Okay, we have a kube API server, etcd, controller manager, and the scheduler. So all the bigger components of the controller are working fine. Please like and subscribe during this little break. That was the FeatureGate activation. Let's now go to the next step. Admission policy. No custom resources. So we're just going to go into the admission policy first, make it together, see how it is, and after we're going to go into whatever it's custom resources, which is going to be also asking us to go through the documentation to get some YAML files from there, just for the video to not last more than 3 hours. So I'll be copy and pasting some YAML files from the documentation. But here we are going to write it together. I'm going to create a boilerplate deployment. Mongakisa admission 1 friend. Image nginx 1 replica, because it's 1 friend. And we're going to call it Mongakisa admission 1 friend.yaml. We're going to go into the file directly. Just clean up the file with the fields that we don't need, just to make it easy to read and understand what we are changing. I'm going to use a namespace, special one, that I'm going to create for this example, and we're going to be working on that specific namespace for all the examples that we're going to use in this video. So we need the field replicas. This one we don't need. The strategy we don't need. It's okay. The type rolling update we don't need. So there is more fields present when I do the boilerplate in the version 1.29 of Kubernetes than the one I used before, 1.28. So the cleanup is taking more time. Okay, the cleanup is done. Let's here add the namespace. I'll be creating the namespace just after. But here we're going to call it Mongakisa -zone. That will be the namespace. I'm just going to copy it so that I can create the next YAML files, which are going to be just having more replicas. This one has 1 replica. I'm going to go here and just put the preal 2 friends, and there will be 2 replicas. Okay, we're just going to put 2 everywhere. So in some parts, we're going to follow how the documentation is giving us examples, but we are going to customize it also for ourselves. So for the label, I just keep it app Mangakisa admission friend. They all will have the same label. And after, for the names, they're going to be just showing how many replicas there are. Okay, I'm just going to change here also. So they all have the same app label. And now let's create a third one, which is going to be 3 friends. So we're talking about admission policy. That's why here I'm talking about admission in a Mangakisa. So there can be 1 friend coming, 2 or 3, and we're going to play with that to give permission or not to deploy those YAML files. Okay, so we have our YAML files prepared. This you've already seen that before. Now will be the creation of those policies. So you'll be able to follow along with me and to write it with me so we can see the different fields. We're going to comment this out. So we're going to take our time on that and develop an understanding of it. So the first I'm going to create here is a validating admission policy. That's the name of the resource. And we're just going to call it Mangakisa at the end. So the API version is it's not beta, it's a V1, I think. No, I'm going to show you where I find this also. Let me just show you where you can pick this up if you don't remember, like me. Okay, kubectl, API resources, and you grep the admission that we've seen before. And here we get it. The API is admission registration.kts.io v1 beta 1. We're just gonna paste it. Easy. So now this won't be a secret for you where to get an API version. You can search for it directly from your terminal. You don't need even to go in the documentation. The kind is a validating admission policy. And the metadata, we're gonna put the name. So I'm going to call it volume Naruto policy .creditizens.com. Okay. So we're in the Mangakisa. We want to watch Naruto, but we don't want any sound like to disturb other people, and we're going to be creating those policies for that. So in terms of spec, we have a failure policy. Failure policy can have different values. Here we just put fail. We want it to fail if there is an issue with a certain part of this file. So match constraints, resource rules, API group. So we're gonna work in the resource that we have created up there. All the Mangakisa admission friends, they're all deployments. So we're gonna be focusing this policy on deployments. That's the resource, Kubernetes resource that we are going to create a policy on. API group, that's how you find it. V1, so it's apps, and the API version is V1. So you've seen the way I found it. I just went into the terminal, checked the API resources, grep for deployments, and I got it from there. That's how you fill this little form. the operation here. So we're just gonna go like in the documentation, create an update. I'm not gonna use update in this one, I'm just gonna use create, but I show you that you can use different verbs. The resources, so here will be deployment. Okay, if you put a star, it will be all the resources in app v1 deployments. Okay, and that's why I put deployments with a S, because that's how it is described. So you use the plural version of the resource. The validation, that's where all the magic happen. Expression. So here we're using a language that is called Cell, C-E-L, and it's Cell. It has to be Cell compliant. So you can use different operations here. For example, the one that we're going to write now, object spec replicas, which is going to be referencing the object that we want to deploy, which is the deployments. Mangekisa 1, 2, or 3 friends. At the field the spec replicas, we want it to be under or equal to 2. If it is not under or equal to 2, the validation will fail. Okay, the failure policy you see up there is fail, but that's not going to be enforced in this file. I'm going to create another file, and that file is going to tell what if we fail it or not. The failure policy that you see here, fail, means more if this expression has a syntax error or Kubernetes can't evaluate it. So at this time, it's going to use the contingency failure policy. It's going to be triggered and it's going to be failing it. So let me put here some comments. Here is the reference of the resource made available to this policy to check on. Okay, so here just the deployments that we want to check on. Whenever there's a deployment, we want to check what's going to happen. Is it respecting the expression validations? If it is not, we don't want it to be deployed. Now validation here can use an expression to check if the condition is satisfied or not. Okay? So how I'm going to explain this? So let's put it here for this comment. So expressions using the cell language. So it comprises any operations. Just going to put some examples here, like contains. So you can check if it contains any character, if it contains a sentence, words. You can use and, you can chain those conditions, equal, and so on. So you just go see the documentation, because there's a nice list there. And after, in the documentation, you can specify some reasons. You can't put any reasons. It's limited. You have to check what's the list of reasons that you can put here in this field as a value. Otherwise, if you don't put anything, it's going to default to the Kubernetes normal reasons. because you can have control on those reasons in a certain way. Or you can also use messages. So same, this you need to go in the documentation and see. We're not going to use messages. We are not going to use messages, okay? But a message could also be entered. And same here, the message is a cell language compliant, so you can also do some string interpolation. You can put some, let me just show you here the text that you want. This can be custom and also accept arguments. You can put a $sign in between parentheses, like here, dollar, parentheses. And after here, you put your logic inside. Okay, so we keep going into the discovery of this validating admission policy. Now we might need to explain here the failure policy. So the validation that you see down there with the expression, it will be checked by the next file that we're going to do, which is a binding to this policy. The failure policy here that we see, it will be just failing. So here I just say fail if Kubernetes can't evaluate this expression. So if there is any issue with the Kubernetes trying to understand the expression that you wrote. So this is evaluated only if expression down there couldn't be evaluated. Okay? Therefore, any syntax error, for example, or Kubernetes can't evaluate. So I can't evaluate it. It will come here and check the failure policy. So the failure policy can have the value of fail or ignore. So you can also ignore it. If the validation doesn't pass, it's okay. You can deploy. Or if the validation, is not interpreted, it will be failing. If you don't use the field failure policy, let's say you create this file, but you don't put any failure policy, the default will be, it will default to ignore, okay? So if not indicated. So here we match on the resources, deployments only. If the resources are deployments, we check the validation on those resources. Object spec replica here, for example, if it is under or equal to 2. If we can't evaluate this expression at all, if Kubernetes has some issues with that, it's gonna fall back to the failure policy up there. So when this validation can be evaluated by Kubernetes, failure policy up there is not triggered because the validation policy has been written in the right way, and we could check if it is yes or no. So at this time, the validation expression works well. It is another file that we are going to create called the validation having a validation action. So there in the other side there's the counterpart, validation actions, that will decide what to do. Is the user API request to create, or here update also we put, but we're not going to use update, the deployment. I'm using the same argument that we used here in the match constraint resource roles. Okay, is good to go or not. So let's save this and create that file that we're talking about, having the counterpart called validation actions. So if the validation expression can't be interpreted by Kubernetes, it will go to the failure policy, fail or ignore. That's in the same file. But if it can be evaluated by Kubernetes, we're using this binding, which is a file coming in a pair with the policy. And here you will get the validation action, which is going to tell what Kubernetes is going to do. So here same, has the same API version. You can see admission policy bindings. Here we just get the API version the same way. It's the same one. And after we put the kind, which is validating admission policy binding. Okay, so it's binded to the policy that you have created. And in this policy, we will be providing the name of that policy also. So it knows which policy to be binded to. So metadata name, I'm going to call it volume Naruto policy binding. So the same name I use, I just add binding at the end, .creditizens.com. In the spec, we go policy name, and now we're going to give the name of the policy that we have created on the other side. I'm just going to go inside that one, and that's the name I gave it. Just copy it. I do this just for you to see where I get the different fields from. And I put here the policy name. So now it knows, let's put it in. Okay. And now it knows that it's going to be binded to that policy. That's the policy that is going to be looking at the validation expression and the resource also. And here is the validation actions counterpart. So here I put deny. Okay. So if the validation expression in the other side, this expression here, if it's not true, so if the object replica is 3, 4, or 1000, it's not 2 or under, I want it to deny the API request from the user. Okay, so this field is referencing the validating admission policy. One policy to one binding. Okay, just see it like that, 1 to 1. They're working in pairs. The validation action, you can maybe comment here. So this would be actioned if the expression in the other side, in the counterpart policy, admission policy, okay, so if the expression fails, if it is not true, if it is false, at that moment this will be triggered. So it has to be evaluated, so can be evaluated by Kubernetes. This is yes. If it is can't be evaluated, it's going to fall back to the failure policy that you have set in the other side. But if it can be evaluated with a yes or no, this action can be denied. Or it can let it go, because we can also use another value here, which is 1. So user will just see a warning, but the deployment will be able to reach the cluster. You can also use in combination of deny, audit, okay, which is going to be writing an event about that, or one also that you can use in combination with audit. That's another term that you can use here, but you can't use audit just by itself. Okay, audit can't be used alone. Okay, so those are the API requests rejected for deny. So if it is denied, the API request of the user will be rejected. If it is one, the API request can pass with a warning. An audit, it is rejected. If it is with deny, with an event written. Same here, warning. Warning will let it go. It will be okay, can pass with an event written. Okay, so this is for the validation action field. There is a little bit more here to write. This file also is going to be evolving throughout the video. But you can also go match resources and use a selector. So what is triggered first will be this file, the policy binding. When this is triggered, this is gonna, only if it is triggered. So here, for example, only if this namespace selector is triggered. So if user try to deploy a resource in a namespace having the label location Shibuya level 5, at this time, this is gonna go in the other file, check if the resource is a deployment. So is it the same? Is it a deployment? If it is a deployment, it's gonna go and check the validation. Is this deployment respecting the validation expression? It is respecting the validation expression, user can deploy. It's not respecting, it's going to come here and see what the validation actions says. If it says deny, it's going to deny. If it says warn, it's just going to warn the user with a message and let it deploy the workload. Here the resource made available to check the expression, okay, in validating admission policy. So the match resources, this is what is going to be triggering all those policies to enter into action and to make those checks. Okay. Counterpart need to be matching this selector. So not all deployments will be checked, because not all deployments goes in a namespace which has a label location with a value Shibuya level 5. Only the ones in the namespace having the label location as a key and value equal to Shibuya level 5 will trigger all this mechanism of check. Okay, so we're good with this file. Therefore, this is what is checked first. Okay, so that's the workflow. Match resources is checked first. Then in the other side, the resource is checked. It's a deployment. Then in the other side, the expression is checked. And after, if the expression has an error or something like that, can't be checked because Kubernetes can't evaluate it. So this time, the failure policy in the other side is going to be enter into action, which is failed or ignored. And if it is fine, it's going to come back to this file and or let it go because it complies, or deny because it doesn't comply. So now we're going to try to see our namespaces, Mangakisa zone. So this is from my tests. Let's delete the namespace and let's do it together. So, K-label namespace, but before that, we're going to recreate the namespace so that you can follow the same steps. K-create namespace Mangakisa zone, it's created, and after you're going to label it. Namespace Mangakisa zone, and you put a label location Shibuya level 5, and this is going to trigger the policy. The binding first, and all resources are going to be deployed anyway in Mangakisa zone namespace, but this label is going to be triggering that at admission. So there's a lot of checks happening at admission before accepting the deployment to enter into the cluster. So the policy, we're going to deploy it to the cluster. And after, you're just going to check policy. Yes, it's here. So the param kind, we don't use it yet. We will use it later in the video. For the moment, we just do it the simple way. We fix errors if you have some. Let me see here. Error validating. Kind not set. Okay, there's a problem with the kind here. I'm just going to go into the file and change it. Okay, I put king instead of kind. So let's go down here to the, you can see it here, king. Let's change it to a D. And good. Now it's been deployed. It's in the cluster. We have those rules. They'll be enforced at admission. On the bindings, here's the binding, and we can see the policy name that you have set is showing the name of the policy that you have created. This one here, link to this one here. Same here in the binding, you see param_ref. Param_ref, it's unset because we're not using it yet. I'm just using the simple examples. So let me delete this one, the binding. I delete it, I redeploy. Okay, so we see the name is linked to that always, because we have indicated it in the YAML file, not because the policy has been deployed. So it's because we have written that name. That's why I did the deployment again, but the other way around. So we can see that. Okay, so now we got here our resource, which is going to trigger because it has the location Shibuya level 5 in the namespace. This is going to be triggered first. That's what's going to start this validation expression to be checked on the object replicas. If there is 2 replicas or less, it's going to be OK, deployed. But we don't want any resource having more than 2 replicas to be deployed. We want it to be denied here, validation actions. If it doesn't respect this, no. Not respecting is going to be activating the validation action on the other side. If this can't be evaluated by Kubernetes, okay, so if it can't be evaluated, it's going to be falling back to this failure policy here. Because the expression that you have written, maybe we're going to write something wrong that can't be evaluated at all. That's why there is a failure policy on the other side. So the resource will be checked as a deployment. So it has to be in this API group and version, and for those verbs, when we create and when we update. Okay, that's when it's checked. Okay, now we can apply to the cluster the friends YAML files. So MangaKeys are one friend, that's one replica, has been accepted. Okay, it's creating. It's all good for it. We can just check the replica sets. Desired one, current one, ready one. So this is running fine. Let's do for the 2 friends. Yes, it's passing the door of the API server. Let's check the replicas. We have one ready. The second one will be ready very soon. What about the 3 friends? Can they enter in the MangaKeys? No. When there are the 3 friends, there are always troubles, so they're not entering into the MangaKeys. The admission door says here, denied request, failed expression, object spec replicas is not respecting this. That's why. Because there is 3 replicas in this one. So the 3 friends won't be able to enter in the MangaKeys. Okay, so you've seen a simple way of using it. Let's tear down everything for this first example and introduction to it. And we can also delete those validation admission policies and the binding. So we go in the binding. And let's use the other one. The other one, which is warn. So deny was here to block, while warn, we expect it to allow the 3 friends to enter, but telling them, be careful. Okay, we put the policies back into the cluster. We're gonna go straight away into the Mangakisa 3 friends, because we know that's the one which causes problems. But you see here, warning, validation failed. But it's okay, deployment created. And we can get the replica sets for that and see if it is running fine. Okay. So I can delete it. You've seen how validation admission policy works. You've seen validation expression. On the different verbs in the other side, the validation actions, deny and warn. Now we can delete everything and let's go into the binding. Let's put 2 together. I think I have to put quotes here normally. It works like that, but I believe that I need to put the quotes. Double quotes. So here let me try to trigger the failure policy. So here I just write object spec and I write dot invented field, which doesn't exist for sure. I'm going to try to apply it to the cluster. Yes, you see it goes to the cluster. Even if in the expression I've wrote something that doesn't exist for sure. Okay, everything has been deployed normally. You're seeing that everything works, but you've done a mistake in your expression. So this time Kubernetes won't be able to evaluate it. Warning. And here we have the message. We have it telling us. But we put failed. So why didn't it fail? We get a warning only. Because the binding validation action, that's the one which really decides what is deployed or not. That's the one enforcing it. That's why I wanted you to see it. So the failure policy, even if you put fail, is not gonna fail the API request. And this you need to experience it by doing. Because the logic would tell you that it's gonna fail actually. User won't be able to deploy anything. But here user can deploy. There will be just the message saying that that field doesn't exist. That's it. Okay, and this is the one deciding everything. Validation action in the binding, deny or warn, that's the one which is going to decide if the resource can be deployed or not. So make sure here you put your rules in that one. You rely on that one. That's why failure policy, if you want, you don't even use it in the other side. We apply it again. Now I'm using audit just to see if I can see it. Okay, so we have triggered that. Now it has denied. Resulted in an error, no such field. I check the events. We can see here the pod admission one friend. So I put the one friend because that's the one that we are sure is going to pass the expression. But because we created a field that doesn't exist for sure is not going to pass. So I didn't really find something relevant in it. We have a lot of logs telling us there's a lot of errors, but I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting something telling me validation admission policy not respected or something like that. Field doesn't exist or something like that, but we don't see anything. So when you put audit, so use the comment section to tell me where when we use audit, where do we find actually those audit events written, because that's what the documentation says. Okay, you see here is the logs. We're checking the logs also, and we don't find anything in the logs. We can tear down for this example. Please like and subscribe during the break. Now it's going to be a very interesting part, because we're going to start playing with it a little bit more, and you're going to enter in something that not many people do or understand. So be ready. Admission policy with custom resources, CRD's deployment. So custom resources definition deployments. So here what is interesting is that we will be able to create our own API endpoint in Kubernetes. Junko rules.yaml API version mr.w.rules /v1 kind. We're going to call it volume Naruto with the O. Metadata, we use the name. I'm just going to call it watch.naruto.mrw.com. The namespace, we're not going to be custom here. We're just going to go into the namespace that we've created already. Mangakisa zone. And here we're going to create our own custom fields. Replicas friends 3. Sounds rules Naruto. No sound. Yeah, put just a sentence. Location Shibuya. We will be playing with one of those fields in our expression, validation expression. So that's what is interesting here, is that you can create your own resources, your own fields, and play with it. So that's why I'm going to write here fully custom API version. As there will be no checks, CRDs, it just has to be a valid cell language. Okay. I'm just going to copy this sentence and say that all I've wrote here in this file is custom. So this doesn't exist at all. But we're going to give it we're going to make it alive in the cluster somehow. The namespace, we can specify a namespace. But if you don't specify a namespace, it it will be just default here to the cluster. It will be cluster wise. If no namespace, it will be cluster wise. You can comment in the comment section to tell me if it is cluster wise or if it is the default namespace, if you don't put namespace here. But here I keep saying that is going to be cluster wise, because validating admission policy and validating admission policy binding also. So both are cluster-wise resources. They're not namespaced. That's why they can have an eye on any namespace using those selectors. And the fields that I have put there, the 3 different fields in the camel case, custom parameters that can check. Okay, we can check by using the expression check mechanism that we've seen before in the validation admission policy. But to be able to do that, we need to do some stuff before. It's not going to be that easy. But you will be able to see the different steps. Okay, so we have the name here, watch Naruto mrw.com. We go into the validation admission policy bindings, and we're going to create a field for that. And that's the field that you've seen when I showed you the resource in Kubernetes that was unset, but now we're going to set it. It's called the param reference. So it's going to be able to look at this custom resource that you have created. Okay, the binding need to have an eye on that, so that when we're going to reference those fields in the expression, it will have the reference where is this coming from. So we put the name, that resource is namespaced. Manga Kissa zone, we put namespace. So if you don't put any namespace there, you don't put any namespace here. But because when we created watch Naruto mrw.com, so the Junko roles, we have added a namespace. That's why we have to put a namespace here also. So now we are providing the reference of the config file. Okay. So now we're going to go in the other one, which is the policy. So we use param-ref, so the reference where the parameters are going to come from that file. And in this side, I'm just going to show you here, we need this. We will need here to indicate the API version on the kind. Okay, so in the binding, we indicated the metadata, name and namespace. But in the validation admission policy, we're going to be using another field that we have seen was unset also, but the name is a bit different. Instead of param-ref, here is going to be called param-kind. Okay, that's why here we need to indicate the kind and the API version. That's how we will be able here to use those parameters in the expression, because it will be able to know that is from API version Mr. W roles v1 and the kind or custom kind volume Naruto. I'm just going to comment out the expression that you had before and create a new expression on what we're going to check. Okay, we're going to create an expression which is a cell language compliant expression. So we can use the right keywords. And yeah, I can check on the maybe on the string that you have written. Naruto no sound would be cool, because I will be able to use also something that you have used in the previous videos, which is called annotations. So object metadata annotations. What is good with annotations in Kubernetes, you can use any key, any value. So you can play with that to write any message or anything. After, I will maybe need to fix the formatting, but from the first go, that's how I'm going to write it. Object metadata dot annotations dot creditizens dot vip/friends equal to params. So params here, param kind, so it's going to reference the custom resource. Dot sound rules. You know, there we have a defined replicas friends sound rules on location. So here I'm just going to be comparing that both are the same. So the annotation will have to be, the value of the annotation will have to be the same as the value of sound rules that you have defined in our custom resource. So here key object is used to reference the resource created by the user, field concerned in this policy. So we create a deployment. Object is going to be used as a keyword here, while param, so the keyword param, is used to reference the field of the use of the resource that we use. Here we use custom resource, but you can use a config map, you can use a secret, you can use whatever other resource that you want to match with it, that you want to check those fields are less or more than or contains that word or are equal to, and so on. Any condition that you want to hear, translate. So I'm just going to take this annotation and just check if the annotation is going to work like that. Not sure that it's going to work like that, but if there's any error, we're going to fix it along the way. We're halfway of the video, a little bit more than halfway. And we have some different things to see still. So annotations, that's where it goes. I'm going to go in the Mangakisa to friends. Okay, and here I put as a key creditizens.vip friends, and the value was this one, sounds rules, Naruto no sound. Just put the same, copy and paste, no typos as usual. That's good. Now we go in Junker roles. Just gonna fix this because I said no checks or CRDs, but actually there will be checks. So we need to create CRDs, and that's what's the amazing thing that you're gonna see in this video. This resource means nothing to Kubernetes at the moment, but we're gonna give it a life, and Kubernetes is gonna understand it. And that's what you're gonna see next, how to bring alive your custom resource. Okay, this is the same that I have pasted here. I need to go in the documentation, custom resource definition. I've pasted whatever I found in the documentation. I get rid of some comments. Just let me put it in another way, like that. Let's get rid of the comments one by one. just to make the file understandable, because we want to customize it to our own resource that you have down there. So what we will need, we need the API version that we're going to put here. I'm just going to give it a name. We're going to learn along the way. Mangakisa rules.creditizens.com. The group name will be this one, this side of the API version. What is before the slash? So Mr.w.rules. V1, we have already the V1 here written. This is the name of the version, is V1. Okay, this is the V1. After, for the fields, the objects, we have 3 fields. Replica friends. So we can put spec if we want, but we don't put spec, we put them directly. So here I'm gonna get rid of spec. This is spec, see, it's doing the indentation, so I get rid of it. Bye spec. Okay, we just fixed the indentation, and we're gonna add our own fields just to replace those. Okay, so this cron spec is going to be replaced by our replicas friends, which is of type integer. So integer. After we have our sound rules that we're going to put just under it. So you just put all your different fields and you just tell to Kubernetes what's the type of that field. The location is of type integer, string. That's good. After that, the namespace is Mangakisa zone. So the scope, it is namespaced. The plural Mangakisa zones, the S at the end, the singular Mangakisa zone, and that's the plural that is going to be used by the API. The kind is not a cron tab. We have a custom kind called volume Naruto. That's what we're going to create. You can add a short name if you want. Like for here, VN, for example, volume Naruto, but I'm not going to use any short name. I'll just make it as simple as possible. See, we just made it a little bit shorter, but adapted it to our own file. So custom resource definition. But we will need Kubernetes to be able to read it. So we need to provide the permissions for that. So role-based access control. We need a cluster role and the cluster role binding. So we're going to create some roles. We're going to go same into the documentation, copy those YAML file, RBAC, role-based access control. We go for the cluster role and the cluster role binding that you see here. Okay, so that's the ones that I'm just going to copy and customize for own use. You can basically do that if you have the documentation on the side for any of the YAML files that you see me creating in the videos. But some of those I prefer to do it manually so that it goes into my brain, it refreshes my brain, and also at the same time I can put some comments very targeted to some fields. I think it's better like that. After, you can also go and ask ChatGPT to give you everything, but I don't believe that you're gonna learn much. So here we go in the cluster role, we put the API group, which is Mr.w.rules. The version v1, we don't need to put it here. The resource is Mangakisa zones, so it has to be plural. And we give the verb get watch list, just to give it the possibility to read it, to have access to it. The name, I'm going to call it Mangakisa custom resource reader. That's the role. So he's a reader. And now we're going to put the bindings. So I'm going to get rid of those comments. Okay. And get rid of the comments first, and after I customize. Okay. Now we have a role binding. We're going to use here the group. It's not a user. It's a resource, which is in the group. Here's system authentication. Authenticated. And after we go for here the role ref. The reference role is the cluster role. That's the name of it. So we're going to change the name for the ones that you have defined. The namespace is a Mangakisa zone, but we don't need to put namespace, so it's cluster wise. And here we go, the name Mangakisa custom resource reader, and that's the binding of it. Just use the same name and add binding to the end of it. The API group is not going to change, it's RBAC authorization KTS IO. So now we're all set. We have the custom resource definition. We have our own custom resource, and we have those here. So we might need to apply it several times because I didn't put it in the right order. But let's try first and see if there's any errors. Yes, nice. There's some errors. So for the custom resource, it says ensure CRDs are installed first. So that's for sure. I was expecting it, but we get some issues with the CRD. It's not well defined. Okay, so here I had the properties that it didn't get rid of. So I'm tackling the errors step by step. Okay, so one for the properties. So the error is going to shrink, and we're going to tackle the next one. Junker rules. Okay. So now it says must be spec.names.plural plus a dot plus spec group. So we use the custom name. So it's not going to work for that. Resource mapping. This is for the custom resource definition. The one that you have created is always going to cry that Kubernetes doesn't understand it. So it's going to say ensure CRDs are installed first. That will be the last error that we're going to fix. But first we need to fix those CRDs. And this is the CRD and the error that it says. That's the last error that we're going to fix on the CRD. Invalid metadata.name. So the name is invalid. The value mangakisa rule.creditizens.com. There is a, you can't put any name. You have to follow a certain pattern, which is here nicely hinting us. So it's telling us what to do. We need to use the field spec names, the plural field, add a dot, and have to use the spec group. So that's the way you name your custom resource. Okay, so I'm going to write some comments here. Okay, this is the error. must be spec names plural. So you can see here in the tree, spec names plural, which is Mangakisa zones. After you have to put a dot, and after you have to put spec group, which is Mr. W rules, this one here. Okay, so let's build this name together following this. So I didn't know that, but at least the error message is it's like a REST message. Let's REST compiler error message. Has the nice informations. So this is the Mangakisa zones dot. So we had the dot, spec names plural, and after we had the Mr. W rules spec group. So now we have the right name for that. Okay, just to tell you where I get it from. If you okay, let's here dot Mangakisa zones. Just copy this. I'm gonna be getting rid of that and put the right name. That's what Kubernetes is expecting. Let's add the comments on top of those fields. And that's the documentation directly in the YAML file. Spec group. Here, I'm going to put it above it. And the other one, the spec name plural, I'm going to put it here. And that's it. Documentation is done about this. Let's now deploy it. We're just going to get one error normally into your CRDs, but the CRD will be able normally to go in. Yes, has been created. Okay. After the roles and the bindings, they've been deployed already from the beginning. And now we can maybe apply it again. So, because the CRDs are present, Kubernetes now is aware of the possibility to get this kind of resource coming in. Okay, this one here is going to disappear. Yes, has been created. That's cool, isn't it? So now we have created our own volume Naruto.Mr. Rules. Watch Naruto.MrRules.com. Mr. W, I mean. Let's check K API resources. I'm gonna grab on Naruto. Normally there's no Naruto. Maybe I need to put a capital N. I don't know. Let's try with Mr. Yes. You see, is of type Mangakisa zones. The API Mr.W rules v1 is namespace true, and the volume Naruto. This is the kind. Okay. So now that we have created this resource, it's available. Let's have a break. Congratulations. Please like and subscribe during the break, and we will be able to experiment it. Use admission policy with our CRDs, fixing match expression, because we use annotations, but I'm not sure that it's going to work the way I've written it. If there's any issue, we're just going to tackle it and fix it. So let's go get those resources. So how it is called? The resource is a manga kisa zone, I think. Or the plural one, manga kisa zones. I just want to see it in the cluster. Yes, it's manga kisa zones. Let's clear this. Okay, try to use the auto completion to see if it's gonna work. Yes, it works. Manga kisa zones. I put the namespace because we have deployed this one in the manga kisa zone namespace. It's here. Watch Naruto mrw.com. Let's describe it. Okay, we can see here replicas friends 3, sound rules Naruto no sound. Oh, but this is strange. I don't see the location. Location Shibuya should be in also somewhere. Does it need camel case? So use the comment section if you understand why I don't see location Shibuya. Or maybe it's been a while I'm watching the screen, so I can't see anything. I just put location area with a camel case on the area. Okay, apply. Junker rules has been reconfigured. Okay. I still don't see it. Oh yes, I can see it. It's just on the kind volume Naruto. So that's why it's good to use spec sometimes. So you have those indentations going on. But yeah, it has been created properly. But it hasn't been aligned with the other parameters. But in terms of indentation, that's where it is. Okay, so we have created our custom resource definition. We have our custom resource. We created the cluster role and the role binding for that. All right, now we have everything set. In this side, we have confirmed in the cluster. We have even modified it because we couldn't see it. But we have found it. It was there from the beginning. Let's apply the validation policy. You see there is a problem with this expression. Annotation, creditization, compilation, failed error. So it doesn't even let us apply it to the cluster. Metadata, creditization annotation, /friends, undeclared reference to friends in container, nothing. So there is an issue if you use this slash notation, because the way you write it, it's a DNS way. So if you start using slashes, it's going to make it complicated. We're going to just make it simple for this tutorial, not overcomplicate. So I'm going to try different ways until it works. .friends, let's see .friends. I go in the file, I change the annotation, I put .friends here. Let me try again. Yes. It went. The deployment has been done. Spec params. For the binding, doesn't work yet. Spec param_ref, parameter not found action, required value. So what's this? I haven't seen this in the documentation, nowhere in the doc. So normally here you just need the name and the namespace. You don't need anything else. Okay, here we have the expression. Here I'm just going to put those quotes. So just put the quotes, it's better. We can even get rid of audit, but we don't know what it is. Where it's written, those events. Let me try to apply it again. No. Okay, no again. So let's use this field that they're talking about. Parameter not found, action. So we're gonna add this field in the param_ref. So sometimes it's good to just follow what it says, and here we're gonna deny it. Because this is the param_ref is looking if this resource exists in Kubernetes. If it doesn't exist, apparently here, it says if a parameter not found action, so it wanna do an action. So it's going to deny because it doesn't see the resource. That's what you can imply here. So if the external resource reference is not there anymore, or it will just deny any API request. So the counterpart would be allow. So it can be deny or allow. Key apply, yes, we have both in. I'm not sure yet about the expression. The expression went in, but there might be something wrong, not sure yet. We do our deployments. So let's start with this one here, with the first friend, one friend going to the Mongo Kisa. Is he going to be admitted in or not? No. Okay, denied expression resulted in an error, no such key, Creditizens. So there is an issue with this expression. I'm using the dot notation, so it implies that everything is a key. And Creditizens is a key here. Okay, so I think I got it. We need to change that and to use the brackets so that he can get the value, because here I can't get any value because after Creditizens he's expecting to see VIP. So let me do the two friends. You see, you're going to get the same error. So the two friends, that's where we have put this annotation. Let's fix this. Let's use a key, Creditizens like that. And maybe I'm just going to get rid of everything. Like that, this means ... So everything is a key. No, the annotation is not formatted properly. What did I do? VIP, just make it simple like that, friends. And this is the value. So I'm gonna delete the policy binding to just change. Now this is fine. So I need to delete the policy itself to change the expression. Okay, let's go and change the expression now. Annotation. And here we need to use the brackets like that. Up. And here I just put dash. Okay, now it should be fine. Maybe the quotes, let's put single quotes. Same as when you code in Python, this. So we can experience this by going into, here it says deny, if it doesn't exist. I'm not going to play with this one, because I didn't know this one exists even before that. So we're just going to deny if it doesn't exist. But the custom resource will be existing, so this is not going to be triggered. But I want to go in the YAML file. So here we have object metadata annotation Creditizens friends equal param sound rules. Okay, so this key is going to be checked, and I'm going to use another cell expression that we have seen in my comments, so that we can play with it. Okay, the policy, the binding, we put it back into the cluster. Mongakisa one friend doesn't have any annotation, so for sure it's not going to work. Okay, so no, sorry, it's invalid. So that's the same example that you've seen before, because it doesn't exist. Okay, resulting in an error, no such key. I'm going slowly, step by step, but just keep following and you will see what we're going to do. That will be the last experiment, last kind of example, so that you can see how it goes. Annotation, here we got it, object metadata annotation, and we got the key metadata annotation Creditizens friends. Okay, and that's how we could get the value Naruto no sound, which is the same as the param sound rules of a custom resource, which is here. Okay, Naruto no sound. That's how we get the second one being deployed. Fine, without any issue. And it's running fine without any issues because it has the annotation, and the string is matching the string of our custom resource definition field. While the third one, Mongakisa admission 3 friends, which is the, no, not 2 friends, 3 friends, doesn't have the annotation, but I'm gonna add an annotation to it. But I'm gonna put sound, or I'll put an O at the end, just to see if it's matching it, because part of it is the same or not. So because it's a cell expression, it shouldn't, which is here, it's not matching. There is one more character in this one, that's why it's not going to work. So here we're going to go down here in the expression, and we're going to just change here by using dot contains. Okay, and we put it in. So inside contains, you put your variable logic, which is going to go fetch params sound rules, and contains. And now we're going to apply this patch of the validation admission policy Mangakisa has been configured. We can just describe it to make sure that our changes has been applied. And here it says contains, so it's good, has been applied. Now we're gonna try to what was 3 friends. Finally, those 3 friends will be admitted in the Mangakisa because they have the right keyword. Naruto no Sando, little bit of accent, but we understand what they mean. They're not going to use the sound with Naruto, so they're admitted in the Mangakisa because we don't want them to disturb other people with the sound. And we get all those pods running, 2 and 3. Congratulations if you made it this far in this Kubernetes series. We have seen here how to set up the future gate to activate the validation admission policy. We have set up our own validating admission policy and have created a custom resource with our own Kubernetes API to enforce some rules in the cluster using custom fields and annotations. Not many people make it this far in Kubernetes, and even on YouTube you don't see this kind of experiment, so congratulations again. The documentation of Kubernetes is rich, but sometimes you need to intuitively read error messages in order to fix your YAML files, as we've seen in this video with the extra field not present in the documentation for the validating admission policy binding in the param_ref field called parameter not found action that we had to add from reading the error message suggestion. So use your intuition, try some stuff to get rid of your own questions, and keep going in your learning with hands-on. Otherwise it is useless without hands-on. Okay, let's stop here. Hope that you like this video. Please like and subscribe, and see you next time.